Hello and welcome to Wizards in Winter bass tutorial. We're going to go through the part written here by Paul O'Neill and arranged by Bob Phillips, slowly and carefully making sure we have some strategies for how to play this well. Now, if you didn't know this already, it's the exact same part as the cello, but because it's written on bass, it's going to sound an octave lower. But unlike cello, some of the things that we have to do with our left hand are going to be different because of the tuning of our instrument. So looking right away from the very top, go ahead and start in first position because we have open E and first finger B. So that's fine. But then you might want to consider shifting to second position in measure 2, putting your first finger on G and your fourth finger on G. And that way you're not going from the E string to the G with your bow. That's a really large jump in an eighth note. And we want this to be clear and articulate. So if you're trying to do this, it might be tricky to get all the way across the instrument. So try in second position. You have a nice solid sound on the D string with your fourth finger G, and it fits inside your hand frame for that position. Then if you want to, you can do fourth finger D. I like doing open D. I feel like I can catch it really well before going back down to first finger G. So that's in second position. You go back to first position to go back to your open E. And then in measure 4, you have this really challenging thing, trying to go from arco to pizzicato. So technically speaking, those two notes are arco, and then we have Pizz. So this is what you do. Because you're in a section, half of the section will play the downbeat. The other half will get ready for pizzicato. And that way, when the pizzicato starts, it's clear and not rushed. And then those same people will do the exact same thing. So the pizzicato people will drop the final note and get ready for the arco in measure 5. Because we want it to be clear. We don't want this and then trying to stumble into it. So because we have a section, you're going to split and divide. So half of the basses will drop the downbeat of measure 4 so that you can get ready for the pizzicato, and then half of the basses will drop the final pizzicato note in measure 4 so you can clearly play the downbeat in measure 5. Another way to do it as you're just practicing is you can get sound to happen with just your left hand. And then while I do that, I'm getting my bow hand ready. That's another way to sort of manage it and handle it. Okay, looking ahead, if you find measure 8, you're going to have the exact same problem. We have first finger E to first finger B, and then we have pizzicato. So this is about you talking out with your section to see who's going to play what, so that it stays clear as an entire section as opposed to individuals trying to make all of those notes work. In measure 10, 11, measure 12, just like we did in measure 4, we have D sharp. So you can either do first finger B and then shift back for D sharp. That's fine. Or you can just start in half position and put second finger on B, and then you have first finger D sharp. And then you'll do a 1-1 shift from the D sharp to the E. I think that makes a little bit more sense than doing 1, 1, 1. That's a lot of shifting when you can just start in half position and do a 2-1. Then it becomes very repetitive. The next big issue to consider is measure 16, and it's just subdividing. You're definitely going to rush a lot of these subdivisions because the music is exciting, it's fun, and it wants to push forward. So you have to make sure you're counting in all these quarter notes and these rests. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 1. Easy to just rush ahead and fall into that rest and make everything go faster and faster and faster. So make sure you're using your metronome to establish a really steady pulse, and make sure you're mentally doing all of your subdivision to keep you steady. Repetitive music here for a while. Everything that you just played in the first 16 measures repeats again, and we finally get something a little bit different starting in measure 30. Again, this is an easy place to rush because it's just straight quarter notes, so since it's not challenging to play, we tend to go too fast. So make sure you have your metronome, make sure you're subdividing. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. All right, now let's talk about these accents. So when you look at measure 32, you have accents. First, eighth note of every group of 4. You can do two things. You can play everything loud and then put extra energy on that eighth note, or to help organize the entire measure, just put energy on the accented note, and then the other three notes, take away all of the edge. Change the dynamic to mezzo piano or piano so it stays out of the way. You can be articulate, but you don't have to be loud. That'll help establish the groove for the entire orchestra, as instead of just a giant wall of sound of first finger E coming from the basses. 44, just like before, make sure you're subdividing 1 and 2. 1 and 2. Okay. Measure 51. This time, how nice. You get to do Arco the entire time, so you don't have to deal with the challenge of going from pizzicato to Arco. Make sure we have first finger E to fourth finger B, and then get your first finger B ready for the lower octave. You always want to be predicting across the instrument. It's such a large instrument that getting your hand ready for these jumps is really, really important to make sure that things are clear. So make sure that at 59, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 1. Metronome's subdivision. Now the last component to that is once you're comfortable with playing all of this stuff, that's the me practice. Then when you get to orchestra, that's the we practice. So you know your part so well that you can listen to everybody else. So for example, at 62, the violins have ya da 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 da. And if you're listening to the violins, you'll be much more likely to not rush. So listening to the musicians around you after preparing your part with the metronome to make sure that you're being honest and steady with how you approach the instrument is a recipe for success. 70 is just a continuation of 62. 78, music we've already done. Again, subdivision, count, be prepared to listen to everybody around you so you don't rush. And that brings us all the way down to measure 101. We have these eighth notes with accents again. Make sure to release the other three eighth notes. You don't need a lot of bow, and you want to make sure to release the left hand so that you don't get tired, and also so that you don't have tension while you're playing the instrument. Looking ahead to 103, same accent idea. And then finally we get to do a little head banging here in 107. Lift, 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 lift. And then Bob Phillips is like, hey, basses, let's see if you can play this. You have these 16th note runs. Now, they're just scales, but they are very fast. And there's a lot of ways that you can do it. It sort of depends on where you are most comfortable on the instrument. If you want to start with your fourth finger on high D, and then shifting to fourth finger B, that probably makes the most sense for most of you. And then you just have to make sure you do a mini shift to fourth finger C, and then you have the option. This is where it depends on what's most comfortable. You can do 4-4, that's one option, or you can do 4-2, 1 open. That's the other option. So whichever way you're able to move your hand the most quickly and the most accurately. So you have to do a little bit of experimenting. It's either 4-4 or it's 4-2-1. Whichever one seems to work best for where you've been trained so far. The next one, not a problem for the left hand. It's more of a problem for the right hand. Make sure your F sharp is ready and you roll your bow from one string to the other, and same with the last one. I had to put a little energy on the F sharp to organize your body so you're able to go quickly from one string to the other with a direction and a goal. And that's the whole tune. That's all of Wizards in Winter for the bass tutorial. You can also find the playthrough track of the bass part, which is the same as the cello part. You can also find the conducting video to get yourself ready if you're going to be doing a virtual recording, or if you just like to see how the part fits in with all of the other parts. All right, happy practicing. And remember, if you practice every day, by the end of the year, you'll be taller.